I want to show you how block lists work in OutboundSync between Smartlead and HubSpot. The thing that I just want to start with here is that there are basic principles that you can apply to Outbound that don't necessarily need to mean that you're using our setup, but I just want to show how the product works and then give you some things to think about as it relates to block lists. So I think a lot of people at this point are familiar that email is getting harder. Deliverability challenges are increasing. Different providers are raising the bar, increasing enforcement, and more companies are moving to a multi-domain approach where you set up multiple domains to set up multiple email accounts to send cold email. The problem with doing this is that you are now creating a parallel infrastructure for sending email that isn't connected to your main CRM, to your main domain, to your main system of record. OutboundSync solves this because we bridge or integrate between Smartlead, which is one of these multi-domain platforms, I believe the leading one, and HubSpot, which is a CRM that we love, that we use, and that a lot of our customers use too. What I want to talk about today specifically is how do you block contacts and companies that are in HubSpot that you don't want to cold email. This could be, for example, competitors, customers, open deals, newsletter subscribers. There's a whole bunch of different use cases I can think of here. And so this is a feature that we officially shipped last week, actually, and is live now. And we've got users getting it set up. We've got documentation for it. And I just want to walk you through how it works. Now, the first thing that you're going to need to do if you want to be blocking things is you have to connect to your Smartlead account. And so now OutboundSync is officially a two-way sync platform. You can go from HubSpot back to Smartlead. Before, it was just taking the campaigns in Smartlead and pushing them to HubSpot. So now it's a two-way sync. Once you've got your API key connected, you can describe it, give it a little name or whatever, and then you jump over to block lists. What's neat about this is that we are doing an API call to your HubSpot account, and we're pulling up all of your lists. Right now, we support contact lists. We've got company lists coming. And so the idea is that you can build a list of customers, newsletter subscribers, whatever block criteria you want to set. And then you can see what that equivalent is here, inside of HubSpot portal. You'll select your list, you'll select your Smartlead API key, and then the type of blocking. And this is pretty cool because there's two different ways you can block. You can block every single individual contact and their individual email addresses, or you can block the entire domain. And I think that it's important to recognize that Smartlead supports both of those. So if you're using Smartlead but not on HubSpot or not interested in OutboundSync, it's just important to remember that you have two different ways of blocking that you can implement on the Smartlead side. What we're doing on the contact level is each individual email address associated with each individual contact. So that would be a case where maybe you have a newsletter subscriber in your company. You don't want to email them through cold email, but you would be willing to email maybe someone else at their company. On the other hand, you would use the domain level block for customers. You never want to cold email a domain of a current customer. If you're communicating with that company, you want to be using your main domain. You want to make sure everything is sitting in HubSpot. You want to be able to reference the historical context for why you're reaching out to them and things like that. And then for agencies, you can select the Smartlead client. So if you want to dedicate the blocking to a specific client within Smartlead rather than applying it across the entire account. A little bit of technical detail here. Basically, we do an initial batch of that entire list, and then we do continuous monitoring on a regular basis for any new additions to that list. The last thing I just want to note here, which I think is important, is we decided to implement something different when it comes to popularly used free email providers like Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo. We're actually not going to block them at the domain level through this tool because there's just the possibility of blocking entire sets of contacts that you may not have wanted to block in the first place. So we have an exclusion list of domains, over 100 different domains that we will not block if you do this domain level block through OutboundSync. Now we make that exclusion list available, and if you want, you can download that CSV and you may want to block it anyway. You may just want to say, hey, I never want to email a free email provider like a Gmail or an Outlook, but we want that to be a separate decision because it affects so many potential contacts and prospects that we're not blocking that by default. And if you're not thinking about how you're blocking existing contacts, if you're not thinking about that communication between your CRM and your cold outreach tool, I would say that's definitely something to be thinking about. And there's other ways of solving it. Obviously, this is just one way that we're solving it with our product. But yeah, something to have in mind for sure, especially if you're going to be doing more outreach in 2024. Thanks.